What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Doom Goblin, and today I'm coming in with a really awesome gameplay for you guys, brought to you guys by Doom Nonstop. Check them out in the description below. Basically, this gameplay that you guys are going to be watching today is, of course, if you couldn't already tell, on MW3, and it is a 148 kill specialist Penta MOAB, so there's no assault streaks, any crazy shit like that, at least being called in by Nonstop. And there's also, within the Penta MOAB, a 67-second MOAB, so that's really fast. This is a really awesome, action-packed, but kind of long gameplay. However, I'd advise that you guys watch the whole thing, because I personally had a blast watching it, just seeing, you know, the kills left and right, and kind of seeing things that I could never really do because I'm terrible. So yeah, definitely check out Nonstop in the description below. Props to him for the really awesome gameplay, and without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the story. So today I'm gonna be telling you guys a story about the time where I actually cut my finger, but it's not just like a kind of like basic cut, like a paper cut. This was actually, I got 13 stitches in my finger, and what kind of followed after getting the stitches is the more entertaining part in this story, in my opinion. So I just kind of felt like it would be interesting to share with you guys. So basically, this happened to me back when I was in 5th grade. I believe I was like 10 years old, I think either 10 or 11 at the time, and it was 2 days before Christmas. I remember this. It was December 23rd, and right after I had eaten dinner, you know, I was getting ready to feed my dogs and stuff, and I have 3 dogs, and I was kind of in charge, and I still am in charge of taking care of feeding the dogs and, you know, putting out their little dog bowls with the food and stuff. And my family has always fed our dogs the canned food. So, you know, they're the kinds of canned foods, like even in, you know, people food, not just dog food, where there's the two kinds where you can either use a can opener to get it open because there's no like pulley thing, I guess you could say, or on the top there's like a little handle where you could kind of like pull it open. And this one kind of had the handle. However, it was a weird lid. It wasn't like necessarily the normal kind of just pull off can that you would normally see. It was just kind of weird. I don't really know how to describe it. So anyways, I was standing by the sink, and I had opened it, and it all seemed like, well, like, because it didn't really hit me that I had cut my finger until like a few seconds after the fact, and I kind of looked down and realized there was blood running down my hand. But anyways, so I pulled open the can, and I did it in a kind of weird way, because I didn't really like know what I was doing, because I didn't really feed the dogs very often back then. That wasn't really my responsibility around the house. So when I opened the can, I opened it in this weird way where I had my index finger through like the tab part of the little, like, I don't really know, I guess like the latch or whatever to like pull it open, and then I had my thumb around the rim of the top of the can where like the lid would come off. And what happened was I had like my thumb, and then I had my index finger kind of wrapped around it, and I don't know how it really made this shape, but it made this huge triangle cut in my left index finger. And you know, if you guys don't believe me, I'll tweet out, I still have a scar from this to this day, and this was like 4.5 years ago. But anyways, so I have like, basically, I had the can in my hand, and I peeled it open, and it cut my finger open. It made like this big triangular kind of mark that was pretty significant if you looked at it. There was bleeding like hell. However, I didn't realize it at first, because I didn't really look down. I didn't feel any pain right off the bat. So I took the can, and after I had opened it, I had like scooped all the food out, and I had not finished like all of it, because I had to use 2 cans, because 3 different dog bowls, so we used like 2/3 of a can for each bowl, because we had some fat ass dogs. And I was going over to the sink to wash my hands off, and I noticed that there was blood running all down my hands, and it was on the floor and the table and everywhere, and I had no clue until I looked down. So I looked down, and of course, you know, me being a 10-year-old kid, I was freaking out, because I had never been injured like this before. I had never, you know, I'd had like stitches before and bad stuff, but never this badly. I'd never broken a bone or anything. So I genuinely thought I was going to die, and I was freaking out. I remember this. I was like, oh shit. And you know, I was like 10 years old, but hey, I knew what swears were. So I was like, oh shit. My dad came like running in the kitchen. He's like, what? And I just kind of like showed him my hand. I was like crying and like sniffling at this point, kind of like, you know, a little lost puppy, I don't know. And I was terrified out of my mind. And I had this little washcloth, kind of like, I had my right hand under my left hand, and like the back of my left hand was like against my right palm, I guess you could say, if you could kind of picture that. So it was like my finger was facing up, and the blood was like dripping down into the rag, and this rag was completely red. By the time, before we even left the house to take me to the doctor's office to get myself stitched, the blood, like the rag was completely red. We brought like every kitchen towel we had in the entire house in the car, and I put on my coat, and my dad was like, all right, you know, we got to take you to the doctor's. And I was freaking out. I was like, am I gonna die? And like shit like that, because I was terrified. And of course, you know, if you couldn't tell already, if you just really pay attention, you could tell that I'm not dead. But anyways, so I got in the car, and I had my little winter jacket on because it was snowy, it was all shitty out, and it was, you know, freezing outside, and I didn't really want to like expose my cut up finger to the elements, and the skin was like peeling back, and it's kind of a disgusting commentary, so I apologize if you guys are eating, or if you guys, excuse me, have like a weak stomach or something. But anyways, so the skin was like peeled back and it was bleeding the whole way there. It did not stop until it got stitched, which was kind of concerning to me because I didn't know if I was losing a lot of blood or not. So we were riding to the doctor's office, and we didn't actually go to a hospital. We just kind of went to the local like free clinic, the walk-in clinic, where you could just literally walk in and they just treat you. You didn't really have to like pay anything. It was pretty much, I guess you could say, the clinic for the poor people. But anyways, so we walk in and, they sit me down, and my dad goes up to like the front desk and he's like, hey, there's kind of an emergency. My son's got like this big ass cut. And I'm sitting there crying my ass off because like, the pain didn't really hit me yet. It didn't. I don't really understand why. I don't know why. I didn't really feel any pain. I was just kind of like numb, I guess. So I was sitting there crying my eyes out, mainly because I thought I was going to die, and I was bleeding out, and this is my last moments, goodbye world, goodbye my Xbox, goodbye Tekken 5 on the PS3, which I loved playing so much, goodbye to my PS2, goodbye to my dog, my family, the one girl I liked who I gave her a crayon, and when she gave it back to me, it hurt my feelings, because I thought she would keep it, because maybe she liked me too, and, I was just like, I was so terrified. So what they did is they took out like this wheelchair, and they actually sat me in a wheelchair, and they wheeled me back into I remember exactly, the back right corner of this doctor's office, and they sat me down in the chair, and they were getting ready to like operate on me, I guess you could say. They sat me down in a chair at first, just kind of like examined my hand, and then they made me get up and lay on like the kind of flat bed, I guess, and they propped my head up a little bit, and I had to lay my hand out by my side, with my palms facing up, and they injected me, especially like my whole hand, but like mainly like my finger area, and it kind of spread to my whole hand with some sort of like numbing medicine. I don't remember what it was called. I think it started with an N, but I don't really remember. So they injected me with that, and I didn't feel anything. All was going well at first. Like I barely felt anything. It felt kind of like getting pinched really hard with every stitch. So it wasn't really that bad, or at least as bad as it became towards the end of the stitching process, excuse me. So all was fine and dandy. I was manning up. I was, doing great. And all of a sudden, it wore off. And that wasn't supposed to happen. And it hit me like a truck. The pain was so immense that I don't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure I passed out. And all I remember past like that point where the pain hit me and like I just got absolutely fucking smacked up and wrecked and 1v1 drop shotted by the pain was that I remember I was like, I at one point I was like kind of half like in consciousness, and I was like screaming on the top of my lungs. That's all I fucking remember, because this was crazy. The amount of pain, it was essentially, imagine peeling your skin back on your finger and just injecting it with a needle. Like no medicine in there, just straight up injecting it, pulling your muscles and your skin with like these little tiny threads and, tying them all together. The pain was immense, and I was only 10, so I wasn't really ready to handle pain like that. So of course, I passed the fuck out. All I remember was screaming, and I woke up and I had this big clunky ass cast on my finger, and it kind of looked like shit. I don't really know how else to put it. It was like white shit. It was in the shape of a turd. So I was like, all right, well, what the fuck do I do? Thank God I'm on winter break. Maybe this will be taken off by the end of winter break. Of course it didn't. It took like a month for them to take it off because my finger was really fucked up, and I still actually can't feel the left side of my left index finger. The left side, I have no feeling. I could bite it like right now. I could smack it against like a nail and I wouldn't feel anything. I literally don't have feeling. So anyways, basically they tied it up and they were like, oh, okay, well, you're gonna have it on until like mid-January. And I was like, well, fuck, alright. So I go home, and I didn't really understand how difficult it would be using that cast and having to kind of maneuver around with it. First off, when I showered, what I had to do was take a little plastic bag and wrap it around my hand, and then I would take a rubber band and kind of use that to like seal it on so no water would get in, because I couldn't get the cast wet. And if I got the cast wet, they would potentially have to take the stitches out and redo it, because the stitches would get all jacked up and it'd get all messy and terrible. So I literally had to take this Target bag and put a little rubber band around it where my wrist was, and just kind of use that as like a glove whenever I showered or like did anything. So that hand was basically not functional for like a month. So what I did to play Xbox and video games and stuff at the time was, it was my left index finger, which usually I would use for like the left bumper. But what I did is I slid like each of my fingers up, so that my left like middle finger was used for the bumper, and then my ring finger I used for the trigger, and then my pinky just kind of hung around like a villain. I don't know, it was like a goon, I don't fucking know. And then it was really weird, and it took some getting used to, and I still never really got used to it. But the funniest part of this is that I remember one time I was in the shower and I had the bag on my hands, and it slid off. I don't know how, but the rubber band, this is the first time we had the bag, and eventually we learned to use more rubber bands, but I only had one rubber band on my hand. I didn't really know how to tie a rubber band, so I just kind of twisted it up a whole bunch. It came untwisted, and the bag fell off my hand, and I freaked the fuck out, because I was like, I'm not doing that again. Nope, nuh-uh. I was freaking out. I dove out of the shower, literally fucking dolphin dive, hold down B, Black Ops 2 shit. Dolphin dived with my fucking Akimbo Mac 10s out of the shower, and picked up that bag as fast as possible, and I put it back on and hopped right back in the shower. And then another interesting challenge was taking a shit. I'm just gonna be blunt with it. Taking a dump was possibly the most terrible, painful, drawn out experience when you have a giant ass cast on your left hand, because essentially that renders your left hand unusable, because you're not gonna get it down there when you're on the toilet. You guys know what I'm talking about. Come on, don't be grossed out. So I like, what I had to do was this weird fucking maneuver, and I honestly, oh my god, I'm kind of embarrassed even saying this. I would like hold my left hand like out, so like to make sure it didn't come in contact with like anything, because it was just unusable. It was a waste of space. And what I had to do was like kind of turn sideways, I guess. Like I kind of had to like arch my body and kind of lean to the left a little diagonally to like get the wiping done and get the process done. And that was not fun, but I mean, I was still able to kind of manage, I guess. It's just, going out in public, I would get a lot of questions about it as to why I had this big ass fucking baseball bat size, not really baseball bat, but you catch my drift, baseball bat size cast on my fucking finger, and I had to explain, well, my dumbass cut it on a can of dog food, which was kind of embarrassing. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like and a comment. If you have any stories about self-injury or anything like that, please share them. I love to read the comments. Let's go for 700 likes on this video, and once again, check out myself and Nonstop in the description below. Thank you all for watching. Bye.